Let's move into our newest segment here on the show, our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. Thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for setting this up. So we've got a hotline, guys. If you want to hear your own wonderful, angelic voice on our show, go ahead and call the number 951-268-4259 and leave your topic that you'd like us to talk about, and maybe you'll hear it on the show. All right, what is our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day today?
Hey, John and crew, this is Blake, and my question is, with last year's Snake Eyes being a critical and box office flop, where do you see the G.I. Joe franchise moving from here? And more importantly, do you think audiences are still interested in G.I. Joe, or has the IP run its course and lost all popularity? I'd love to know your thoughts. Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
All right, thanks a lot for calling that in, man. Listen, it's hard to put into words how excited I really was for Snake Eyes. Number one, because of Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
Number two, you had what's-his-face playing the lead from Henry Golding. Who I just love. I love Henry Golding. I think the dude's great. He was great in The Gentleman. He's great in Crazy Rich Asians. He's just great whenever he pops up in something. I love him. He was also fantastic in Simple Favor. So good in that. I love that guy. And that movie was so bad. I mean, listen, ninjas with sword fights. It ain't rocket science. And they took their camera and decided, you know what would be best? Okay, ninjas fighting with swords is great, but you know what's better?
Donuts.
Making edits every half a second and rapidly shaking cameras so nobody can actually see what the action is with the ninjas fighting with swords. And they move the camera around like this, and it's like, it was just unbearably bad. At the end of the movie, the villain was actually the good guy, and Snake Eyes was the asshole. It was a terrible film. And of course, it, appropriately tanked the box office and what have you. But you raise an interesting question. What does that tell us about G.I. Joe as a whole? Now, the simple answer is to say, look, Snake Eyes was a terrible, terrible movie. Let's not judge the potential of the IP based on one terrible movie. But I would say this. I do think it would be uniquely challenging to try to get a G.I. Joe going today. And I remember I had that conversation with somebody. They said, well, John, same era was Transformers, and Transformers was able to come out huge and be big. Yes, but the Transformers are distinctly unique. There's nothing else out there, save GoBots, that have been about alien giant transforming warriors who turn into everyday looking vehicles and a change and all that kind of stuff. Whereas with G.I. Joe, we have had a lot of G.I. Joe-like stuff over the years. Elite military groups. We've seen lots of movies like that. Military action heroes, seen lots of things like that. So something like the Transformers, even though it came out of the same era as G.I. Joe, it remained uniquely distinct from the time when they got its movie franchise going. They tried to do it a couple times, even with the biggest movie star in the world, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And, I'm going to say this. Anything can work for sure. If you got the right script, right director, anything can work. But saving that, I honestly don't think there's a hunger or a need for any more kicks of the can at G.I. Joe, to be honest with you. I don't know, Christian, you see this. What did you think about Snake Eyes, by the way? And then what do you think the position of the IP is right now? Do you think there's a hunger for new G.I. Joe content?
Do I think there's a hunger for it? No. Do I think there's still a way to do it and make it really good? Yes. So one of my favorite, I'm not as such a comic aficionado as my friend here, but I loved G.I. Joe, the comics, when I was younger.
Larry Hama
Marvel run. Yeah. When from issue 1 into about issue 75.
They're really good.
Couldn't put them down.
Really good.
And the stories are fantastic. The stories with both Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. If people are familiar with anything that I do, they're going to be like, of course he said that. I think it could work very well on a streaming service. I think that if you adapted those 75 issues and you focused on all of them, you could do phenomenal stuff. Because the other reason I think, my personal reason, I agree with you wholeheartedly that the reason Transformers works is the gimmick and the fact they want to see big CGI on the screen, for sure. But I still think they could have been done better also with a deeper story.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. But I think that with G.I. Joe, if you really dive deep, I think a lot of the times when they go after these movies, they go, oh, it's popcorn movie, and they do that, and you can do it in a popcorn way, but you can also really dive deep because there's some emotional stuff going on with, I think it's Cobra Commander's kid and things that are happening inside of it, and it's really, really deep. And I did not see Snake Eyes. I didn't get a chance I wanted to because there's also an issue I'm sure you're familiar with that is entirely silent with Snake Eyes. And I actually really liked and I love the actor that played Snake Eyes. The only thing that I thought that was lost, and it has nothing to do with a full-on race issue. It's just the fact that what I liked about, did you ever see Kickboxer with?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Not Kickboxer, Bloodsport. Obviously, there was the story of what happens with Frank Dukes in the beginning,
Right.
And he's taught, and he's
Bolo Young, man.
yeah. Well, but in the very beginning of that movie, though, when you see how he takes the place of his master's son,
Yeah.
right? And he's trained in that tradition, and that's the same thing that happens with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. Snake Eyes is like this Vietnam War vet, and he gets his eyes blown out, and he's taught by the same master as Storm Shadow, and there's this rivalry there that I thought I've always wanted to see that. The war veteran who that happens to, and really dive deep and make it darker. So yes, the long answer is I do think absolutely it can be done and should be done.
Rob, same questions for you. Like, do you think there is a hunger for it right now out there amongst the audience? And do you think there's a way to do it right that maybe it could be a hit again?
Well, like Christian, I don't think there's necessarily a hunger, but I absolutely think my problem with the G.I. Joe movies has been tone. Because the people that are making the G.I. Joe movies think, we're doing a comic book. We're going to do a thing. We'll put a lot of CG in it. It doesn't. Here's the thing. We live in a world now where we've got 2 action franchises I would look to, 3 if you want to include Bond, but I would say Bond's a little outdated. John Wick and Mission Impossible. Mm-hmm. Those 2 franchises have a seriousness, a reality. John Wick creates an entire world. There's a whole world. There's assassins, hotels with a code and coins you have to use, and you travel around the world. That's could be very goofy, but it's treated with the utmost seriousness. And when they give you, like when Lance Reddick, is at the he's the maitre d' of the hotel or whatever, that guy's a badass. You walk in there, and these movies, the problem that Hollywood has had when they adapted something like G.I. Joe is they believe that it can be for kids.
Right. They want to sell toys.
It's going to be toys. It's going to be goofy. The problem is kids want shit that's cool. You got to make something cool. Kids do not want something made for them. They want something that they think is cool. And if you're shooting for a child, you know what? I offer you Star Wars and The Phantom Menace. Star Wars was made for the kid in everyone. The Phantom Menace was made for kids. And that it was not, that's not what you do with the franchise. And G.I. Joe should be cool.
And even if the kids do think it's cool when they're younger, you want them to remember it as cool when they're older.
That's
when
right.
They go back and see it like when you go with whether it's your brother, your sister who are older, or your dad, or your mom, your cousin, your uncle, whoever, and you're watching with them, you want them to enjoy it also, because that's how it's going to become more of a universal thing.
Pixar nailed the formula, at least
Yes.
in their first couple of decades, where I remember it was Lasseter who once said, he said, we don't make movies for kids. We make movies that are kid friendly.
Right.
Yes.
And maybe there's something to be said. By the way, best G.I. Joe movie ever? It's called Megaforce. If you want to see the best G.I. Joe movie ever, go look up.
And read those
Ray
comments.
has had his hand up. For
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
no,
right.
I'm just saying. I only watched the animated G.I. Joe, and they all had different personalities. They all came from different branches of the military, whatever. That's what I liked. I liked because my favorite guy was Roadblock.
Yeah.
If they maybe come at it more of like an Expendables way, because the problem is Snake Eyes focus on one guy. You can only, he's cool, but then a whole movie about him. I think it should just be like maybe Cobra takes over government. They're really strong. And then these guys have to come together.
They wanted to do the Marvel thing. They wanted to do,
Yeah,
wanted
but
to watch this, and they were going to do, I think, a Hawk movie was their next plan,
Yeah.
and then they were going to bring them all together
you have-
Avengers style.
You got to make the movies good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the funny thing about, if you look at Mission Impossible and you look at John Wick, there's not a lot of shaky cam.
No, I mean that's the blight of action films.
Shaky cam is a cheap, horrible way to create.
and it kills a lot of good action. All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about that? Do you think that there's a big hunger out there? Are you hearing people saying we want a new G.I. Joe? Maybe not. Or do you think it can still work today if they did it well? Whatever you guys think, jump into the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. Hey guys, we want to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month. And now for the plot twist. I'm just kidding, there isn't one. Seriously, Mint Mobile just has premium wireless service from $15 a month. There's no trapping you into a 2-year contract or opening the bill to find these crazy fees. There's no luring you in with free subscriptions to streaming services that you'll forget to cancel and be charged full price for. I used to dread opening my phone bill every month because every time I was opening it, it was like playing roulette roulette. I never knew what the actual price was going to be, and it always seemed to get higher. But not with Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text, plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And if you're worried about the complication of switching things over, don't. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your phone number along with all your existing contacts. So guys, get premium wireless from just $15 a month and no unexpected plot twists at mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Seriously, you'll make your wallet very happy at mintmobile.com/Campea.